All right, thank you for joining us today for today's webinar. We're going to go ahead and get things kicked off so that for the sake of time and so that we know that we have plenty of time to potentially also handle any questions and answers that may come up. So again, thank you for joining us. My name is Kyle Lee. I am our Senior Construction Solutions Specialist here at ATG USA. And in today's webinar, we're going to be talking about integrations for the Autodesk Construction Cloud, and specifically focusing on the integration that's available within Autodesk Build and the cost management module with the Sage 300 CRE ERP system. We may have a little bit lower live attendance today, but that's okay because all of our webinars are being recorded and we do post those on our YouTube channel. So if you happen to be catching this as a recording on the YouTube channel, thank you for joining us there as well. Please feel free to give the webinar a like and also subscribe to the ATG USA YouTube channel to stay up to date with the most current information that we're rolling out from all of our different technical teams here at ATG. So again, as I mentioned, I'm Kyle Lee, Senior Construction Solutions Specialist. I'm also being joined by a very special guest on today's webinar, being joined by Mr. Josh Cheney from the Autodesk Construction Solutions team. So Josh, I'm going to go ahead and give you a moment to introduce yourself.
Yeah, awesome. Kyle, really appreciate you and ATG having me on today's webinar. I've been in Autodesk for 5 years. Really, since I landed here, we've been working on building out an ecosystem of integration partnerships. We over the past 5 years have built the ecosystem to include, a variety of different integrations, from mixed reality to reality capture on job sites, drones, and ERPs, which is very fitting for today's purposes. Also come from industry and have had a variety of different roles over the last 18 years at several construction management software applications.
Awesome, great. So thank you, Josh. We appreciate that introduction there. So for those of you that are on the call, we're fixing to launch a poll in just a few moments. We've got a couple of poll questions we'd love for you to take a look at and provide some feedback to us on. And then also we're going to do something a little bit different in today's webinar. We really want this to be as interactive as possible. And so rather than waiting to the end of the webinar to field questions and provide answers, we are encouraging those of you that are on the line today, if you do have any questions throughout the course of the presentation, please leverage the Q&A panel in the Zoom meeting and go ahead and throw those questions in there. I'm going to be monitoring the Q&A panel there, and I'll be letting Josh know as we have questions that come in so that we can actually try to address those while we're going through the presentation today. So please do not hesitate to leverage that Q&A panel. Do not feel like we need to wait till the end of the webinar to open up a Q&A session. Let's go ahead and have those conversations along the way. So before we dive into the meat of the presentation for today, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to launch our poll questions. We've got 3 questions that we'd like for you to take a look at. I'm launching that now. And so the 3 questions that we'd like for you to answer is, the first question is, what is your role on a project? What team do you participate from? Are you part of the owner team, the GC team, or the subcontractor team? Next, and getting a little bit more focused on the Sage 300 platform, we want to know, are you currently using Sage 300 as your ERP platform? It's just simple yes or no. And then for those of you that may be leveraging Sage 300 CRE, has your firm ever integrated it with any other project management systems in the past? So if you don't mind taking a few moments to answer the poll questions that we have there, we would certainly appreciate that. We're going to leave that up for about maybe 1.5 to 2 minutes, give everybody plenty of time to respond there, but we definitely would appreciate your feedback here. And so obviously, yeah, if you're not using Sage 300, we definitely understand that you haven't had an opportunity to look at integrations with that in the past. So we'll keep that up for just another minute or two. See if we have anyone else that wants to chime in there. All right, it looks like just about everyone has responded. And it looks like overwhelmingly everyone on the call today is part of the subcontractor teams, typically on projects here. And it looks like that everyone that's responded also does not currently leverage Sage 300 CRE. So great opportunity to learn a little bit more about that platform, as well as the way that it can integrate in conjunction with Autodesk Build and the cost module there. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap that poll up. And Josh, I will hand that over to you at this point.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Kyle. So for anyone that's not familiar, Autodesk Construction Cloud is really kind of the genesis of a lot of different portfolio products that Autodesk owns. It's comprised of BIM 360, PlaneGrid, Assemble, Building Connected, Pipe, ProEst, and Autodesk Build. Really, if I look at kind of the end-to-end life cycle of a construction project, Autodesk Construction Cloud has various modules and products that really address everything from the design phase of a construction project out through the handover and operations of an asset. Where we're going to be focusing the bulk of our time today is on the build side of things under our cost management tool. But as you can see, we've really done a nice job of stitching together various capabilities on our platform to address everything from design, plan, build, and operations. If I move down into the shared data, really, these are all areas where we have the ability to provide integrations, leveraging our APIs and or our middleware that we have in-house named ACC Connect. Lastly, this platform provides incredible access to your data and reporting that back to you in the form of dashboards, reports, our dashboarding tool inside of Autodesk Build called Construction IQ, and then lastly, our data connector, which is a tool to be leveraged to really pull all of your information out of Autodesk Build or BIM 360 and serve that up to you in a variety of downloadable spreadsheets. Lastly, leveraging Building Connected, we are comprised of a builders network. And so Building Connected does a fantastic job of really connecting all stakeholders on projects, be it owners, architects, consultants, engineers, general contractors, subs, and so on. So a very wide offering here. And really what you'll find is that Autodesk Construction Cloud really lends itself to various stakeholders at different points or milestones in the project as they need to use our product. All right, so if I start to look at the intent behind Autodesk Construction Cloud, the first and foremost reason to adopt it would be to digitize your processes, right? Whether that's taking PDFs and turning those into digital forms that you can take out into the field, taking your drawing sets or your specification books and turning those into areas where there can be online collaboration across your projects, or turning to things in terms of cost management and dealing with the dollars and cents and the buyout phases of your construction project. Next, we look to integrate Autodesk Construction Cloud with either your existing tech stack or other products that you may be considering. And this is done in a variety of different ways, using our APIs that we document out on our Autodesk Forge website. Again, using our middleware that we've branded ACC Connect, or lastly, bringing in third-party applications and hosting those inside of our Insights tool so that you get a center console of all of your technology, but leveraging it and accessing it in one central domain using Autodesk Construction Cloud. Lastly, then we want to take all of these different elements that are part of your construction tech stack and bringing them all together to really optimize your workflows and optimize your data retrieval, being able to report on information both inside of Autodesk Construction Cloud and coming from third-party products. So with that, I'll turn things over to Kyle, and he'll take us through a little bit more around integrations.
Absolutely. And so, Josh, as we start to talk about integrations, I think it's very important to understand some of the out-of-the-box integrations that are available for the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So there's a video playing right now that's showing you where you can go to access a wide array of different partners that already have integrations that are built in to the Autodesk Construction Cloud. And so if we see that we're leveraging or working with a tool, in this case, like EarthCam, we can go in and we can look at this app that's available. The information tab tells us a little bit about what the app will do. Authorizations will tell us what type of information that it's leveraging from our project. And most importantly, this usage tab right here tells us how to activate and start to leverage information from this partner as a part of our build projects. And so again, what we did here was we just went to the apps tab. We found the partner card that was necessary there, and then you can activate that and add that to your team's applications that can have integrations into these other tool sets. So once you've done that, you'll see that some of these apps, just like Allied Fabrication Center, you can see at the top and center of the app stack there, that one's been activated for the ATG USA Construction Cloud site because we are an Allied Fabrication partner. And so that gives us the ability to integrate with our Allied Fabrication Center software and also be able to connect projects that we have that are hosted into the cloud to be able to leverage that data downstream for fabrication. And so always great to understand that there are a large number of apps that have already been built in and integrated with the system. And so wanted to point out where you could go to find those different applications or those different integrations that are already available. So with that, I want to turn it back over to Josh so we can really start to talk a little bit more about the specific integration between Autodesk Build and the cost module along with the Sage 300 CRE ERP system.
All right, thanks for that, Kyle. So Autodesk has been working with our middleware provider, HH2. HH2's got a storied history of doing development work with Sage and have a variety of different applications, including a payroll tool and routing for invoices coming in through AP, field reporting, and more. Autodesk has partnered with HH2 to really deliver a best-in-class integration between Sage 300 and our web-based cost management solution. Our relationship with HH2 is one where it's directly transacted with HH2, and HH2 is entirely responsible for the integration points between Sage 300 and Autodesk Construction Cloud. A big reason we structured the relationship with HH2 in such a way is because we want them to take and maintain ownership of the integration. In past roles, I've seen customers struggle with a white labeled version of an integration, only come to find out that trying to get support for that product can be a challenge because you run into a finger pointing scenario where if there's a new release and that new release potentially breaks something with the integration, customers or end users don't really know who to go to get support and get the integration fixed. Autodesk has contracted directly with HH2, and the relationship is one where they have total ownership of the integration. They've built the integration, they support the integration, and they work with us in terms of providing access to our customers and then also configuring the setup. Now, on the configuration front, Sage 300 is typically run on-prem, or it can be hosted, but it's still a server-based application where you have people logging into the Sage environment that lives directly on your server or on a hosted server. Now, one of the big reasons we partnered with HH2 is they have a product named UCM, or Universal Construction Model. Now, what this UCM tool does is it allows us to talk to a server-based application and a web-based application like Autodesk Build. So the UCM sits in between your server and your Sage 300 instance and Autodesk Build and facilitates information moving back and forth between the two products. This is a one-time installation that would take place on the server where you're hosting your Sage 300 environment and would be conducted by HH2. it takes maybe 2 hours to get the configuration set up and the implementation running. And then from there, HH2 will begin syncing over your customers, clients, and projects. Now, some of the benefits of a standard integration, and to be clear, HH2 provides a standard integration, is, first of all, it's much less expensive. We refer to these types of integrations as off the shelf, where the intended workflows are built out, and the release of the application gives you the capabilities that you're looking for that meet kind of an 80 or 90% rule, where, you know, there may be a few unique things about your company and how you do things, but generally the integration addresses the majority or all of your needs between accounting and operations. It also allows for broader scope. There's thousands of potential customers that would be using the integration versus, you know, a few. And also kind of what that translates into is a lower price point and more revenue to offset the R&D work or development work that HH2 is doing. Furthermore, it allows for an elegant solution, mostly from a user interface standpoint. And I'll get into a little bit more of the UCM's user interface and how that tool works, and then also how it gets set up for configuration. Lastly, and I spoke about this a little bit, but from a support standpoint, it allows kind of a consistent approach to working with a support team. And really, there's a single vendor to work with in terms of accountability. Again, this gets back to the way that Autodesk has structured our relationship with HH2. And really, the intent is to provide a better end user experience. All right, so we started working with HH2 really towards the tail end of 2020. And then throughout 2021, we worked to deliver the integration. The first pass was delivered as an MVP in September of 2021. And then towards the beginning of 2022, we rolled out kind of the additional features that provided a general availability release. Areas on the flow chart here where you see one direction or another, those can be configured to really meet your company's business practices and the way that jobs get set up. I will say that in a lot of cases, what we typically see is a project gets set up with the original estimate on the Sage side of things, and then that project and the budget get pushed over to Autodesk Build to then conduct buyout, manage change orders, and roll up pay apps. So a really succinct workflow here, and what we've tried to deliver is the flexibility to address most customers' intended workflows, and also the underlying capabilities to make sure this is a really worthwhile integration for you. Now, some of the system requirements that HH2 asks that our customers have put in place are as here on the screen. So we try to keep the Sage 300 instance as updated as possible, where we try to run current or one previous release in terms of where the integrations touch points are going to be. The accounting server requirement, pretty standard stuff there. Every IT person that I've spoken with about the integration has more than ample capabilities in terms of how the server has been configured to address really each of these requirements. And then if you'd like to go out and see a little bit more around the tech requirements, please feel free to go out to HH2's website. It's a really comprehensive website, and everything from pricing to what their integrations do to some of the tools that they've built in-house, they're all available out on their website. All right, so a couple other things that HH2 also provides is a mobile solution for timekeeping, and that's already integrated into the UCM. So really great solution and additional capabilities there beyond just the integration. So again, time entry has a really strong UI. We typically get the question from our customers around, how can I capture my field activity and get that back into my accounting system? If you're a Sage 300 user, HH2's remote payroll is a really great integration. It dumps a lot of your field workers' time and activity directly into the Sage payroll module. A few of the contacts that we work with at HH2. So we've got Michael Newland. He's been an integral part of building out the integration, kind of a storied history with Sage itself. Was originally a consultant at Sage, then started a company named Event One that did integrations and reporting for Sage 300, and has more recently joined HH2. Todd Junkie, also a long career either working at or with Sage, and now oversees business development at HH2. And then lastly, Bree Gooch. I often refer to Bree as kind of that type of personality where, you know, you really feel like every time you interact with Bree, it's kind of like working with Chick-fil-A, where everything is my pleasure. Bree constantly goes above the call of duty and loves working with our customers. So, you know, between the three different contacts that we have at HH2, a really phenomenal team to really enhance your customer experience. All right. Myself, wanted to make sure that anyone on the call has my contact information, and then also Ian Turner, who is our product manager for our cost management module. All right, now to get into a little bit more about the bulk of today's presentation. So just setting a quick agenda for our demo. So we'll go into the cost management module and review the budget, commitments, and contracts portion of cost management. Then we'll transition over to UCM, or Universal Construction Model, from HH2, and show you a little bit of what that user interface looks like and how the tool works. And then lastly, we'll have a commitment that's been created in Autodesk Build and move that over into Sage so that you can see kind of how the integration works, and cover a couple steps in between. All right, let's see. All right, Kyle, just real quick housekeeping too. If any attendees have any questions, again, please feel free to post those into the Q&A section. We want to keep today's presentation as interactive as possible. All right, so I'm going to flip over to Autodesk Build, and I've landed in our cost management module here. Let me go ahead and increase my screen so that I'm taking up all the real estate. So this is the landing page for our cost management module. I don't have any outstanding items that are directly associated with me being on this project. But what's nice is we do try to call out contract site dates, RFQ information, and additional parts of the cost management module. And you can display those either from a daily standpoint or a weekly standpoint. Now, what's also nice is we give you this chart that give you kind of a breakdown in terms of where the dollars are mostly being allocated on the project. So you can see kind of a breakdown of HVAC, electrical labor for drywall, etc. All right, now if I transition over into our budget, so this would be the first area where the integration is run and the budget's been pulled out of Sage and deposited here in the cost management module in Autodesk Build. It's going to bring over your budget codes, your budget names, and also the associated dollar amounts with this contract. Now, a couple of cool things that you can do inside of our product here is have the ability to come in and look at various views that have been set up for the project. Now, those can either be user specific or those can be across the entire project team in making those available. So you can see I've got a sub report for the project. I also have one here for our labor only. So if I select subcontract only, what we can do is really filter down to the specific budget codes that we're looking for inside of the solution and give you kind of a tailored view inside of our products. So in this case, and for today's purposes, I'm going to spend some of our time looking at our HVAC subcontract and buying that particular item out, creating a commitment for it, the contractual document, and then also sharing that through the integration over to the job cost portion for commitments on the Sage side of things. All right. Now, another cool feature is if I click on any of these budget names, I'm also going to get a deeper dive into everything as it pertains to that budget. So I can go and see any type of approval processes. I can also see a history of anything that's been done regarding that budget. And then lastly, I also can come in here and make any kind of forecast adjustments, and create a distribution. So really cool functionality. And we've only gotten so far as our budget screen here. Now, before I go too far, I also want to point out the settings area inside of cost management. Now, this is a big part of the mantra that we've really tried to stick with for our cost management tool, where we much prefer to teach our customers how to fish versus doing the fishing for them. A prime example of that is how Autodesk has used Microsoft Word and their mail merge capabilities to really enable our customers to create their own documents inside of our application. Other companies that I've worked with in the past either leverage Crystal reports or have a professional services team where you're forced to go down that path and submit report modifications to a team. And really that results in two things. One, delays. So you're sitting waiting for a week or longer while a professional services team kind of works you through their queue to try to get around to understanding the report modifications that you want to make. And then secondly, additional costs, right? If you're bringing in a professional services team or a third-party report writer, you're looking at dollars being spent to get those documents created. Now, a big transition that we have inside of Autodesk Build in the cost management module is we enable you to come in and modify or add documents, be it for change orders, commitments, pay apps, you name it, and create those documents inside of our application. So for instance, if I wanted to modify the contractor commitment doc inside of Autodesk Build, I can simply come in here to edit, and I can either upload a new contract that I want to work with, or a great tool that Autodesk Build provides is the ability to download a sample document. So I can click on this Word link here, and what that's going to do is it's going to launch Microsoft Word for me, and it's going to create the document that I use for inserting variables. That's what we call them. It's essentially fields coming out of cost management and making those available for you. So here's what that default template is going to look like. And these fields here with the brackets around them are going to be the variables that I've described. So it's incredibly easy to come in here, use this default template if you'd like, insert in your company's logo, insert in your boilerplate information, insert in any kind of legalese and exhibits that you want to include in your contract. Once you're done with it, you can save that, add that document here, and now I'll go and show you where a lot of different components are going to come together. So this document for writing your commitment, managing the actual commitment in our application, and then executing it and moving it over to where the integration can pick it up and push that data over to the Sage side of things. So I'm going to go back to the cost area, and now I'm in the contract portion of cost management, looking at the various commitments that we have out there on our project. So the one that I'm going to work with today, again, is this HVAC subcontract. I'll open that up, and you can see over here on the right-hand side of the screen, I now get a fly-out panel. So what's pretty slick about this, and things to point out, are going to be the code, the name of the subcontract, any description, the budget that it's related to, and also the supplier. Then what you'll see down here at the middle portion of the flyout is what we had originally budgeted versus the schedule of value for the subcontract and the amount that we're buying it out. So what you'll see is there's essentially a $2,500 savings there between the original estimate and the buyout. So nice job estimating, team. And then if I continue to scroll down here, what you'll see in this document package is I can generate from a document template. And so here again is that contract sample document template that we were just looking at. So if I select that, it's going to pull up that option for me to create that document. It's going to go through and generate the contract for me. And now what it's doing is extracting out our buyout number, our supplier, the vendor that we're working with. And the ultimate result here is it creates a file for us that not only gets stored in the solution and immediately assigned to the contract, but because Autodesk Build has been built to be a collaborative tool, what it's also going to give you is the ability to send that document directly from the cost management solution and send it out to your supplier, in this case, for the HVAC work. And you'll see that we've got Jackson Heating and air conditioning in here, the dollar amount inclusive of that savings that we had on the buyout, and any other information that our end users or customers want to include in their document. All right. So if I go back to cost management, you'll see that that document is now attached. And the last thing that I'm going to do here is move this contract or commitment from a sent status, and you'll see that reflected in a couple of different places, to executed. Now, the integration that we have with HH2 really picks up on commitments and other areas where the integration runs on the status. So once we move this commitment to an executed status, that's when the integration is going to say, okay, great. Let me go and look for newly updated objects that I can go grab and push between Sage and Autodesk Build. So that's where the HH2 universal construction model is going to come into play. And that's kind of what we're looking at here. So this is the middleware. I'm going to go ahead and log into that. And what I'm going to get is kind of the tools that I use to manage my integration between Sage and Autodesk Build. So I'm going to go to my UCM. I'm going to go to my cloud integrations and pick up my Sage 300 integration. So you'll remember Bree Gooch, I mentioned from HH2. What Bree will get involved with is the configuration of getting your account stood up, activating the integration, and setting a polling frequency. So what that's going to do is, behind the scenes, HH2's UCM is constantly looking for updates. Every hour it's going to go and say, okay, what has changed between the two systems? And then it's going to synchronize those various entities. Now, again, Bree is going to help you get set up here in terms of configuring the connection and which way data needs to move between the two applications. Lastly, there's a manual sync. So for that commitment we just created, if we want that to immediately be picked up and pushed over to the Sage side of things, I can come in and hit sync entity. And now what that's going to do is it's going to go out and say, okay, what data is newly available for me to use between the integration with Autodesk Build and Sage. So now that that's run, the last thing that I'm going to do is go over to the Sage side of things and actually pull up the Sage 300 UI. So I've logged into Sage 300 here, and I'll blow this up so everybody can see it. And where I'm going to navigate to is the job cost module inside of Sage 300. Now, this is probably all too familiar a screen for a lot of Sage 300 users. And what you all will end up seeing is, you get your various tasks and inquiry screens here. And where I'm going to navigate to is going to be the commitments section. And what that's going to do is pull up the inquiry screen where I can go and look at really all the different commitments that are available for me over on the Sage side of things. So we'll give that a minute to pull up here. And then I'll go through, and as many of you know, scroll to the bottom of the commitments portion here and pull up the list of various commitments. So if I scroll down to the very bottom portion here, you'll see that HVAC subcontract and the code that was associated with it. So if I select that and say, okay, now I'm going to get that detail and everything that was captured over on the Autodesk side and made available for me here in the inner commitment screen. So you'll see the commitment number, the description, the vendor, that Jackson Heating and Air Conditioning, the job number, the cost code, and the category that commitment was written for. The last piece, and probably one of the more important pieces, is the amount. You'll see that it's not the $87,500 that we had originally estimated, but accurately the $85,000 that the commitment was created for inside of Autodesk Build. So a real quick example for you there between cost management, the commitment created, and pushing that over into the Sage side of things, but a really great workflow to demonstrate what the integration does. So with that, I'll kind of wrap things up and want to pivot back to the PowerPoint presentation and really turn things over to Kyle and team, see if there have been any questions that have popped up. And if not, then we can conclude today's presentation. Kyle, anything that's popped up or any questions that you might have regarding the integration and how it works?
Yeah, Josh, so we haven't had any questions that have come in from the attendees, but I did have one quick question. as it pertains to that integration there. So now you mentioned it's truly a bi-directional integration. So it could potentially be, pushing data from Build the same way that it's pulling data from Sage into Build. Is that correct?
Yeah. Now that's going to depend a little bit on the workflow that the customer is trying to achieve.
Okay.
Right. So vendors, customers, projects, budgets, commitments, all of those tend to be bi-directional.
Okay.
Some of the other workflows like capturing actual cost, that is 100% of the time going to come from Sage, because that's where the job costing and transactions are being captured for accounting purposes. And then we'll pull that actual cost back into our solution and serve it up either as a summary and reflect that inside of the budget, or capture them as individual expenses. You'll still get a summary level view inside of the budget for actual cost, but if you're pushing over the individual transactions as expenses to the cost management tool, then you're going to get that individual breakdown. So it depends a little bit, Kyle, but for most of the preliminary data sharing, that is going to be bi-directional and a decision that our customers are going to make when configuring the integration.
Gotcha. Okay, great. No, thank you for helping to answer that for me. So if there is anyone on the call that does have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and enter those into the Q&A or even in the chat box at this point. We do have a few minutes available, so if you do have questions, now would be a great time to throw those in there. But if for any reason, you may not have a question right now, but you may come back with some questions, or you may share some of this conversation around the webinar today with colleagues within your firm. If there are questions, feel free to reach out to us afterwards if necessary as well. You can always reach out to your dedicated account executive within ATG if you're currently an ATG client of ours. But if you don't have a dedicated account executive that you've been working with, please feel free to leverage the email address you can see on your screen right now. It's sales@atgusa.com. And then we can get you routed to the appropriate account executive. And then if we need to have a further conversation regarding either the construction cloud itself, or potentially conversations around the integration with Sage 300 CRE like we've been discussing today, we can definitely get engaged with myself. I can also leverage Josh and his colleagues on the Autodesk Construction Solutions team, because most importantly, we want to make sure that we can bring the information to your teams to help you understand what's capable and if it's going to be a great fit for your firm. So I don't see any additional questions coming in at this point. So Josh, I would like to thank you tremendously for the insights that you've been able to provide and your assistance with today's webinar. I think this has been massively beneficial. And if we do have any follow-up that comes in from any of our clients, I'll definitely be in touch so we can carry on some individual one-on-one conversations and understand what those specific scenarios might look like.
Okay. Awesome, Kyle. Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Josh. Again, thank you for joining. And for everyone that joined us today, we appreciate your time as well. We know that it's always very valuable. So we appreciate you spending some time with us, and we hope that this has been helpful and insightful. And if there's anything that we can do to help out, please do not hesitate to reach out to us here at ATG USA. And with that, have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much.
Hey there, thanks for tuning in. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe and check out some of the other content on our channel.